Hey everyone, Jody here along with Niki and Kellie, who are here too. Hello.
Hello.
Hey.
And guess what time it is, folks? It is the Radiotopia fundraiser. Hold your applause. Niki and Kellie are going crazy. I can tell. But look, this is the moment each year when we remind you, the listener, that this show and every show in the Radiotopia network exists because of listener support.
Yes, and as you know, we are an independent show. We make all our own decisions. We're big kids, but we're also part of this incredible collective called Radiotopia. You may have seen some of the things happening across the media landscape, the podcast landscape in particular, layoffs, entire companies are folding, shows are disappearing overnight, but not at Radiotopia. Radiotopia is growing. It's adding new shows, it's letting its creators try new things, and it's able to do that because it is built differently. It is creator-owned, independent, and powered by listeners who decide to support the shows and the network directly.
And that support feels really good. Like, don't we all need something that makes us feel really good? I know that I do. So I think we're looking for ways where we can support the things that we love and the things that we believe in. And that's where Radiotopia comes in. And when you give to Radiotopia, you're giving directly to the shows you love, not shareholders, not some big corporation, just to the creators and the stories you care about.
Look, if someone wants to be a shareholder, I'm not going to stop them.
By all means. But if you want to be a big corporation, we're going to judge you.
But look, it is true that the support you give to Radiotopia goes directly back to us and the other incredible shows that are part of this special collective. So if that sounds like the kind of media that you want to keep around and support, I hope you do. If you're listening, I have a hunch that you do. Help us keep it strong. Donate right now at thisdaypod.com. That's our website. You will see a link right there. It takes 1 minute. thisdaypod.com. And thank you, everyone. It really means a lot.
Thanks, everyone.
Thanks, guys. Appreciate you.
Everybody's heard of Macy's famous Thanksgiving Day Parade, but what about Macy's Parade of Deals? Now through the Thanksgiving Day Parade, Macy's will feature a brand new, super exclusive must-have deal per day and for 1 day only. If you love to find ways to imbue a little thrill in your days, then download the Macy's app ASAP. You can score steals on items like the Dyson Big Ball Turbine Head Canister Vacuum for the person who wants everyday essentials to feel like a luxury experience. Or an UGG Fluff Throw for watching movies with your loved ones this holiday season. Macy's Parade of Deals will have everything you need for holiday hosting, gifting, travel, plus plenty of deals to treat yourself to. Don't mindlessly scroll your phone this month when you can parade through your holiday to-do list with Macy's.
This day is brought to you by Progressive Insurance. Fiscally responsible, financial geniuses, monetary magicians. These are things people say about drivers who switch their car insurance to Progressive and save hundreds. Visit progressive.com to see if you could save. Progressive Casualty Insurance Company and affiliates. Potential savings will vary. Not available in all states or situations. Hello and welcome to This Day, a history show from Radiotopia. My name is Jody Avirgan. This day, November 6th, 1896, a pioneering female doctor, a champion for women's suffrage, becomes the first female state senator in U.S. history. This was in the relatively newly formed state of Utah, and the woman was Martha Hughes Cannon. Now, of course, the first woman state senator in U.S. history is very notable, but the sketch I just gave you, pretty sanitized version. That's probably what you'd see in the small encyclopedia listing. But along the way to Martha Cannon becoming a state senator is a story over the fight for women's suffrage in a new territory, the battle over polygamy in the Church of Latter-day Saints, the so-called Mormon underground, and lots more twists and turns. A really fascinating character, a really fascinating story. And let's get into it now. Here are, as always, Nicole Hammer of Vanderbilt and Kellie Carter-Jackson of Wellesley. Hello there.
Hello, Jody.
Hey there.
Let's meet Martha Hughes Cannon. Kellie, what strikes you about her?
Okay, so Martha to me seems like a very refined woman in all of her pictures. She has sort of in her early years, like the signature hairstyle that's like split down the center of her head and sort of cut and coiffed short at the top of her head, but then it like flares up in the back, kind of like a bump or a little bouffant. She's kind of hard to describe, but she's very much in the era of the Victorian era. Think high collars, think, thick white ruffles sort of around her neck, maybe like a nice sort of fitted black, wouldn't be called a blazer, but jacket, something to that effect. And very brilliant, very, very brilliant. I mean, someone who was raised to think that she could pretty much do anything she wanted. And that's exactly what she did. She goes to medical school, she runs for office, she has all of these accolades, and she does not let her womanhood stop her.
But before we get into that, though, on the appearance and the dress and the sort of dignified, worth pointing out, all this is happening in 1890s Utah territory. I mean, that's you don't get more frontier and rough and ready than that. I mean, it's kind of remarkable.
No, you don't. I mean, I think that I kind of wish that this was a woman who we recognized her face a little bit more. I mean, I think when we think of other suffragettes, people like Susan B. Anthony or Elizabeth Cady Stanton, they have a little bit more facial recognition or even name recognition. And Martha doesn't sort of have that distinction quite yet, but she is definitely changing the landscape both out west and politically.
Right. And she's as you mentioned, she's hyper educated. She goes to the University of Deseret, and then she transfers to the University of Michigan. She's in essentially segregated classrooms because women aren't allowed to take anatomy alongside men because it's considered improper for them to look at the naked human body together. She's the only woman in her class at the University of Pennsylvania. By the time she's 25, she has 4 degrees.
Yeah.
That's a lot of degrees, especially at a time when women don't have the same access to education.
Yes.
She's really cranking them out.
Yeah.
We've
done a number of episodes about women and especially women's suffrage in the frontier territories. And a lot of times, it's, I think, surprising to learn that a lot of these territories and states gave women the right to vote and actually a considerable amount of power fairly early. And I think one of the things we've discussed is how just kind of when you're out on the frontier forging a new society, you need everyone, right? And everyone's just sort of in it together. And some of the kind of other strictures and confines of society that have been built up over decades and hundreds of years back east just kind of have to get thrown out the window by necessity.
I mean,
And you need women.
What's that?
And you need women.
You need women, right.
Yes, because it's largely male population. So one of the ways we talked about this when we talked about Wyoming instituting women's suffrage is maybe you can attract women by offering them things like the vote.
I think people tend to think of, Brigham Young or Mormonism as a very conservative religion, and the idea that women would not have the ability to sort of navigate themselves freely is kind of quite the contrary. Brigham Young is encouraging women to study, to get educated, to have careers. And I don't think people realize that there are all of these political cartoons about women being in shackles and being held in bondage and how polygamy is, harming them. And yet women in Utah can vote. They could divorce their husbands. They could own property. They had a lot more liberation than other people were experiencing in different states. And so there's something to be said for that.
And people like Martha Cannon talked about polygamy as a kind of liberatory arrangement where she's if you're just one woman married to one man, you have to do all of the housework all of the time. But if you're the fourth wife, like she was, then you only have to do it a quarter of the time, which, it's a particular version of liberation that I wouldn't necessarily subscribe to.
It's not what I would want, but I get it.
I get it. Part-time wife.
We all need breaks.
The polygamy question, I hinted at this in my intro, but I think it's hard to overstate how much that question and that sort of political problem organized so much of the politics and the culture of the time. Now, it is worth pointing out that only 10 or 20% of Mormon marriages at this point are polygamous, but it is this outsized issue on a number of fronts. So one, the church itself is kind of roiled by it, but also as these territories are trying to make a case for inclusion as states and trying to kind of codify their systems, that polygamy question is really central as something that needs to be worked out and contested. To the point where I made a hint at this Mormon underground that Martha Cannon ends up on. But like, there's a moment where she kind of she marries a much older man, and it
23 years older.
23 years older, yeah.
23 years.
Now her family's originally from Wales, but like, because it is so controversial, this marriage, and it's roiled up in this question of polygamy, she kind of has to flee back to Wales for a few years on this so-called Mormon underground.
Right, because it's controversial, but it's also illegal.
Yeah.
In 1882, the U.S. Outlaws polygamy, and she is in a polygamous marriage. And when there is a crackdown and her husband, Angus, is arrested, she is trying to avoid testifying against him. She's trying to avoid testifying against all the other women she knows who are in so-called plural marriages. And yeah, they scooch her out of the country back to Wales in order to try to prevent her from being arrested or forced to testify.
Yeah.
Hello, this is Matt from the Explorers Podcast. I want to invite you to join me on the voyages and journeys of the most famous explorers in the history of the world. These are the thrilling and captivating stories of Magellan, Shackleton, Lewis and Clark, and so many other famous and not so famous adventurers from throughout history. Go to explorerspodcast.com or just look us up on your podcast app. That's the Explorers Podcast.
This day is brought to you by Quince. Look, you have heard me talk about all the amazing luxury clothing you can get at fair prices from Quince. I'm wearing my very own cable knit sweater right now as I record this. In many parts of the country, the weather is turning colder. It is time to get cozy with sweaters and jackets and Italian wool coats. You can get all of that for great prices on Quince. But can I also direct your attention to a section on their website called Home? That's right, it is not just clothing. And if you want to get cozy, how about a cashmere blanket throw for just $129? There are pillows, blankets, sheets, towels, linens. Quince has it all. You can upgrade your look and your home or apartment. It's time to step into the holiday season with layers made to feel good, look polished, and last. All from Quince. Perfect for gifting or keeping for yourself. Go to quince.com/thisday for free shipping on your order and 365-day returns. Now available in Canada too. That's QUINCE.com/thisday to get free shipping and 365-day returns. Quince.com/thisday. Let's talk for a minute about something people don't always love talking about: money. Like a lot of you, I've always stressed about my finances, and I've also stressed about stressing about my finances. The picture just never quite comes into focus. But that started to change for me about a month ago when I started using Monarch Money. I finally loaded in all my accounts, debts, transactions. It was quick, it was actually kind of fun, and suddenly everything made sense. It's like I was staring at a magic eye poster, and finally it clicked and I saw that sailboat. I can't afford the sailboat, but I think you get the metaphor. Feel organized and confident in your finances with Monarch, an all-in-one personal finance tool that brings your entire financial life together in one clear interface on your laptop or on your phone. Just in the last month since using Monarch, I've been able to see where my money's coming from, where it's going, and from there I've been able to budget, set goals, and have real conversations about what matters most. Don't let financial opportunities slip through the cracks. Use code THISDAY at monarch.com in your browser for half off your first year. That's 50% off your first year at monarch.com with code THISDAY. And then in 1890, the church kind of has a compromise. They outlaw more polygamy, but they allow existing families to kind of come out of hiding. And so Cannon returns from Wales and kind of patches into, some of those names you mentioned earlier. She patches into a larger suffrage movement. And there's a Utah Women's Suffrage Association where Susan B. Anthony comes and gives a speech. Elizabeth Cady Stanton gives a speech. And she starts to kind of find her, I think, political side a little bit. And then decides to run for office.
Yeah, she really finds her political voice. She speaks at the Chicago World Fair in 1893. And, she's talking about, not just women's ability to be able to vote, but women's ability to be able to lead. And so her run for office is literally her taking her principles and beliefs and putting them into practice. And so, and I'm always sort of astonished at how women are sort of moving and navigating their lives at a time when there is deep restriction, but Martha keeps pushing past all of these boundaries. And it's one thing to run, it's a whole nother thing to win.
Yeah. And in 1896, Utah becomes a state. Her husband has been pardoned because President Cleveland pardons all of the polygamists. And when Utah becomes a state, it enfranchises all of the women in the state. So Martha has the ability to vote, but she also has the ability to run for office. And in 1896, she campaigns for one of the at-large seats from Salt Lake County. So just so listeners know, like an at-large seat is basically, let's say Salt Lake has 5 representatives, to 5 senators. You get to vote for 5 people, and it doesn't have to be a particular district. You just vote for everyone. And so what happens is that each party runs its distinct slate of candidates. The Democratic Party puts up 5 people, the Republican Party puts up 5 people, and then voters get to choose among all of those names who they want to vote for. In this case, Cannon is running as a Democrat and her husband is running as a Republican. So they are running against
each other.
Amazing.
It's just kind of amazing.
What are the dinner table conversations like?
Well, immediately, like all of the newspapers, both locally and nationally, pick up on this because it's such a great story. This enfranchised woman is running against her husband in this race for office. And they play up, especially because of the polygamy issue, right? Like the 4th wife of this guy is running against him. The Democratic newspaper in Salt Lake writes, Mrs. Maddie Hughes Cannon is the better man of the 2.
Wow.
Which is amazing.
Wow.
They suggest sending her to the state Senate and letting Mr. Cannon, as a Republican, remain at home to manage home industry. And that's what happens.
Yeah. So she gets She gets 10,000, a little over 10,000 votes, and he only gets 8,000 votes. The 5 Democrats go into office, and he kind of says, both of us wanted to be state senators. I failed. She got there, and I'm going to try and support her and keep her as happy as possible. So once she's in office, any thoughts on kind of what her legislative record is? What does she want to get done?
She's great. She gets a ton of stuff done.
Yeah.
In her first month, she introduces 3 bills. One is to provide compulsory education for the deaf and the blind. One is to require employers to give female employees places to rest at work. And then her third is to create a state board of health. And these are all sort of these kind of what we would call, like a few years later, progressive movement ideas, compulsory education, focus on public health. She sponsors the state's first pure food law, which is something that's going to become a national issue in just a few years after this. She wants children who aren't vaccinated to not be able to go to school and cause disease outbreaks, which is something that would be nice to reintroduce.
Yeah. What I think is also interesting about her is that while she's doing all of this work, she's a mother and she's having children. Her 3rd child is being born close to the end of her term. And I just find, again, all of this incredible. Like that she's not only someone who is running office, but she's also running her household. I mean, you want to talk about work-life balance in the 1890s? Like, I think that was something she definitely struggled with as well until she's trying to make life better for women who are also like her, who are also trying to figure out that balance of having a lot of children and having to figure out, how are we going to navigate our lives.
She has to factor in one other thing, which is that she is having her 3rd child in a polygamous relationship. And so when she has her child, that kind of turns attention back on the issue of polygamy, which was becoming more controversial again, especially because when you have the child, then people are thinking, okay, well, what's this child's life going to look like having, being raised in a house with, at this point, I think Angus had 6 wives at this point. So it calls attention back on it. Angus is arrested and convicted and fined again for breaking the polygamy laws. And in the midst of all of that controversy, Martha is like, well, maybe this isn't the best time to run for office again.
Yeah.
And so she doesn't run in 1900.
Yeah.
Yeah.
1904, she moves to California and returns to working as a doctor, which is her original training. She dies a little under 30 years later, 1932. She dies of cancer in California. I want to end by talking a little bit about why she tends to be so forgotten, though I will say that in 1996, the Utah State Capitol added a statue, and then we have a number of times on this show talked about the National Statuary Hall. Is that what it's called? The National Statuary Hall, which is where every state gets to submit 2 statues in Washington, D.C. And last year in 2024, a statue of Martha Cannon was added alongside the statue of Brigham Young as Utah's 2 statues in the National Statuary Hall. The statue, by the way, is 7'6" tall, which I love, because she was like...
Just like 50% taller than she was.
Yeah, she was like 5 foot even, or
5 foot.
Yeah. So anyway, there is now a statue of her in the U.S. Capitol and the Utah State Capitol. But generally speaking, I think fairly forgotten. What is your sense of why that is?
I mean, historians accredit it to her being a Democrat. I mean, during a time when it was more popular to be a Republican, Republicans being the party of Lincoln at the time, Republicans being seen as somewhat of the more progressive party, it probably would have made sense to see her on a Republican ticket. Elizabeth Cady Stanton, Susan B. Anthony, they're all Republicans. And so it could be part of that. It could be the fact that, she is the 4th of 6 wives and she's controversial and people didn't know how to sort of situate her and her politics alongside her lifestyle or her religion. And so that could be part of it.
I think that's
too.
right, Kellie, because I think it's this idea that polygamy is seen as so deeply regressive and anti-woman that people aren't comfortable with the complexities of that. And so they just ignore her altogether for easier examples.
But I'm glad that she got picked. I mean, you look at all those 2 statues that are in the U.S. Capitol and you're like, really? This person? But I would say for Utah, well done. Like those seem to be the 2
Could do worse.
most representative people that I could think of from Utah.
Yeah. I've always wanted, I don't know how we would do this, but I've always wanted to do a little sub-series on the 50 or the 100 statues that are in there, and sort of which recent additions and recent, but there's some states that haven't like updated it in a long time, and you look at some of those choices and you're like, oh boy.
Oh boy, indeed.
Yeah.
All right, we're going to leave it there. Nicole Hemmer, thanks to you as always.
Thank you, Jody.
And Kellie Carter-Jackson, thanks to you.
My pleasure.
This Day is a proud member of Radiotopia, a network of independent, artist-produced podcasts. Don't forget to sign up for our America250 Watch newsletter. Every Thursday, members get exclusive access to analysis and information about the upcoming semi-quincentennial, commentary from our team, and a list of fascinating things that happened that week throughout history. Join in, find out lots more at thisdaypod.com. You can also follow This Day Pod on Instagram, Blue Sky, and YouTube. Jacob Feldman is our researcher. Brittany Brown is our editor. My name is Jody Abergan. See you soon.
Radiotopia.